This is not a video that can be misconstrued as hate speech or racist rhetoric in any way, shape, form, or fashion. This video is intended to educate all human beings of all races, colors, or creeds. The monologue spoken by the writer and narrator of this video only has the intention of sharing observational opinions based solely on facts. Sometimes the truth hurts, especially when it counters or opposes your worldview. Instead of irrationally working yourself into an emotional frenzy, which most call being triggered, try humbling yourself and looking at life through the perspective of someone who may actually have logical points and teach you something valuable. This video is dedicated in love to all those who truly desire a path to victory and not victimhood.
Terrorism from white supremacy is the most lethal threat to the homeland today. Not ISIS, not Al-Qaeda, white supremacists.
This coming from a senile old white man who gave the eulogy for a grand wizard of the KKK's funeral, whose own crackhead son was caught using racial slurs in texts recently, who during his campaign also reminded the black communities of this.
There's not a racist bone in my body. I've been involved in civil rights my whole career.
You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. I'm not joking.
And by the way, you know, I sit on the stand and it get hot. I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They'd look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap. And I've loved kids jumping on my lap. Even call centers, which rushed overseas in the hundreds of thousands. How many times you get the call? I'd like to talk to you about your credit card. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. They're going to put you all back in chains. But I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
Not the first sort of mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and a nice looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook, man.
There's not a racist bone in my body. But I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
With a president of the United States, I'm sorry, it's just really hard for me to refer to him as POTUS, making such an absurd, divisive, unsubstantiated claim such as this, while addressing the American people in a speech, I believe is truly grounds for impeachment. This hypocrite, like the rest of the demoncrats, only spew such garbage from their mouths because they are failing politicians who can only use distractive, divisive rhetoric to cover their own disasters and waning policies. It's one of the oldest tricks in the books because they have been doing it for years and consistently fooling large populations with their focus on intensifying their agenda of racial division. It's all a lie. And I want to give you an honest and humble look at how a conservative white man truly sees what is going on with racism in America today.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
Chants of Black Lives Matter have echoed our city streets for quite some time in unison with violence and destruction. And we are led to believe that this mayhem is justified and acceptable behavior on behalf of those whom are oppressed. Every day for the past 2 to 3 years, the left seeks every avenue possible to attack the conservative Christian population harder than ever before. Racism has become a very powerful weapon of the left to put in the hands of Generation X and Z, emotionally driven snowflakes, to in turn use as their magical words to end all rational or logical thinking or discussion. In short, If you don't agree with the leftist ideology, you are automatically a racist. A powerful word taken way out of true meaning or context, added to others designed to drive the knife of guilt deep into the spine of anyone willing to pander or kowtow to the concocted imaginary idea that white people are inherently racist and therefore owe black people for all of the evils of our ancestors.
There would be no black African slaves if it wasn't for black people selling them. White people didn't just somehow mysteriously discover an African nation that they start selling slaves. No, it was other black people who sold for profit their own people all over the world. Ladies and gentlemen, that was how we got slavery across the world, not just in America. It wasn't the racist white man. It was black people that were doing it. Slavery was about the availability of cheap labor. They tried it with the Native Americans. It didn't work. Why? Because the Native Americans had a common language. The Native Americans knew the terrain. The Native Americans were resourceful. So it's almost impossible to hold a group of people down with those truths. So they went to the continent of Africa and bought slaves from these other black people, and they separated them. They separated moms. They separated children. They separated husbands. They separated tribes. So they couldn't speak a common language. They didn't know each other. They couldn't mobilize. And that's how they did it. It was not about race. It wasn't.
If the 13% of this population that the black communities comprise in the United States are led by a mere 3% of the far left white liberals to believe that blatant segregation is completely okay as long as it is sold as pandering to the pride of their race, then the black communities have a way bigger problem than police brutality or white supremacy. 13% of the U.S. population is identified as African American or black people. Over 50% of all violent crimes, including murder, are committed by a fraction of this 13% of black people. Of course, I say a fraction because we are all smart enough to know that not all 13% of the black population are responsible for that statistic. I would venture to say that only 4 to 5% tops of the 13% are responsible for the criminal statistics. So think about that. Only 4 to 5% of a part of our population is responsible for over 50% of all violent crimes. It's also very important that we remember the number 13%, because 13% is an obvious minority to 60% of the population that identifies as white. The word minority carries an ugly stigma in the minds of those who fall into that category of statistics. Being a minority translates to most as being inferior. This is a huge problem that certain cultures have, not just in the United States, but all over the world. The implication that because your race is the minority in numbers, it automatically makes you feel as an inferior to other races with a majority number of population. The same stigmatism can apply the opposite way as well, where some may arrogantly believe their race is superior because their numbers in population are dominant. One may deduce that a larger number in population is evident by choices made by certain races that allow them to flourish, multiply, and dominate certain regions of the world. Others will argue that systemic oppression of certain races intentionally hinders and stifles growth of a certain race, therefore always keeping that race as a minority or inferior race. But does systemic racism exist? My answer is yes and no. No, there is not any blatant laws or policies in any companies or organizations in modern times that allows anyone to be racist in any way. There are laws to protect people from racism. So it's not something that lurks beneath every white-owned establishment out to destroy the black communities. However, I will agree that democratic government policies have intentionally targeted the black communities to keep them oppressed and dependent on the government. Such policies and organizations as welfare and Planned Parenthood were intentionally positioned to weaken the black communities and further division not just politically, but socially. This is the primary reason that the black American population is still only 13%.
And a Democratic president took over, Andrew Johnson. First thing he did is went down and took away the guns of the blacks who were given this property throughout South Carolina, Florida, and Georgia. And then they came back and took away their property. The KKK, Democrats. Jim Crow, Democrats. And guess what? The KKK was actually eliminated in 1985. And until Woodrow Wilson, Democratic president, decided to bring it back with Birth of the Nation that he showed in the White House. And a few years later, it was Democrats who burned Wall Street down. Democratic KKK. Slavery was and still is an evil. Whether it's 83 years of history in our nation, or the prior 3,000 years of history, or the presence today around the world. Reparation is divisive. It speaks to the fact that we are a hapless, hopeless race that never did anything but wait for white people to show up and help us. And it's a falsehood. It's demeaning my parents' generation, that one of the greatest generations in the history of our country. We have a history of millions of middle class and wealthy black Americans throughout our 20th century who achieved their dreams. Instead of a theory, I'd like to share the reality of a race whose history of success in America has been stolen, and what we can do to repay that damage. I grew up in the Deep South, Tallahassee, in the 50s and 60s, where we believed in commanding respect, not begging or asking for it. We did that by meritocracy, by winning, not just in sports and entertainment, but in every discipline: math, science, exploration, innovation, farming, enterprise. We had a reputation, as the Asian community today has a reputation of winning respect. That was the black community back in the 60s. We led our country in the growth of the middle class, led our country in men matriculating from college, led our country in men matriculating from college, from men committed to marriage over 70%, and percentage of entrepreneurs over 40%. That 40% equated to 50 to 60% of black Americans across our country, from New York to Tallahassee to Texas to California, part of the middle class. I grew up in that middle class in the 50s. And believe me, they were not sitting back waiting for white people to give them a break. They were making it. I remember Perkins Service Station, Speed Grocery Store, Baker's Pharmacy, FAMU Hospital, where only black doctors and nurses worked. We were taught about pride in our country, pride in our race. We were taught about Christus Addis, the first American martyr who died in the Revolutionary War, the Tuskegee Airmen, and over 100,000 black men who fought the wars against the godless ideology of Marxism and socialism and communism. Those same ideologies now thriving in our educational institutions. We were taught to recognize and appreciate progress. In 1973, entered the NFL, no black quarterbacks, middle linebackers, free safety, because those are white thinking positions. 40 years later, we're now electing a president of the United States as a black man, vice president of the United States, a black woman. And we say there's no progress. Only those who say there's no progress, those who do not want progress. The greatest gift that we had with President Obama, with our American people saying, finally, we can close this chapter. Finally, we can move forward. And what have we done since? That has divided us even more, with critical race theory being introduced around the same time. We have a community now that lives the American dream, look around this room and see the middle class that we've developed and more. And yet we tell those who are striving to get where we are that they can't because white people won't let them. That to me is treacherous, it's traitors. For us to tell others who want the American dream that they can't achieve it because other people with a white skin won't let them do that. If you want to repay the black American community, give us back our history. It was Karl Marx who said, the first battleground is rewriting of history. And that's exactly what's been happening. You take away our history, you take away pride in our past, appreciation for our present, and a vision for our future. And that's what you're seeing in Chicago, Baltimore, Ferguson. Every place Democrats oversee a black community is misery. And we're gonna blame white people? How about an ideology? How about we take ownership, educate our young people again, Give them jobs opportunities again. Tell them that the way to get in this country is through free market. Allow them to take away the regulations, allow them to run their own businesses. Don't burn down their businesses every year because a white police shoots a black person. When you have black people, 93% of the thousands of black people being killed are by other black people. Crime is a true issue. And with that being said, we are not a hapless, hopeless race. We're just like everybody else. Give us a break and we'll make it happen. Stand back and you see how great our nation, our community truly is. Give us an opportunity. We'll get that done, and I yield back.
I also believe such separation of certain black organizations and companies, as well as policies like affirmative action or the 1619 Project, and now the new critical race theory, are also extremely racist and damaging to the black communities. Blatant segregation of black schools, black clubs, black products, and lately, streaming networks pander by segregating all black movies and TV shows in their own categories. Is this really about showcasing the special prideful race that black people want us all to embrace? Or is this about separating a race from all others as something different or unique or something special or superior? What happened to equality? I thought equality and acceptance as an equal meant to blend and mesh with each other in loving tolerance. So why would any establishment or organization believe that one race should be singled out as something different? Let's not forget how incredibly hypocritical and double standard this logic is. If white people separated their organizations or companies or movies or whatever by labeling it white anything, it's automatically considered racist by everyone, not just black people, which is why the slogan or Marxist organization known as Black Lives Matter automatically appears to everyone else as racist, and the assumption that the bearers of this slogan feel superior or more important than any other life. The bottom line is, if you put any color before the given understanding that lives in general matter, then you are a racist. The excuse that until we as white people can all understand what it means to be oppressed, that we should acknowledge black people being completely justified to be racist, destroy billions of dollars worth of property, and cause more deaths than their contradictive claims, is an excuse that no one should entertain for 1 second. But wait, Mr. Moot, you have white privilege, so you don't have the right to speak about racism or black people. How would you know what it means to be oppressed or attacked based on the color of your skin? I will be the first to admit that out of the 60% of white people that comprise the U.S. population, maybe 5% are hardcore racist by the true definition of racism. That may be a high number, but very realistic. Now, if I applied the same percentage of black people whom are hardcore racist in the 13% of their population, that would obviously add up to more blacks per ratio being racist towards whites. Would you agree that 5% of blacks are racist against white people? Maybe 2%? Oh, wait, I forgot. Black people can't be racist because they were once oppressed by whites. So by default, there can be no possibility of black people being racist, according to some far-left liberals of all colors and races. When you were growing up in your household, was your father there, or did your mother or grandmother raise you? Did they tell you at an early age that you were a victim? Did they tell you that white man is evil and always out to keep you down? Did they teach you that you should resist the police at all costs, especially the white ones, because they will kill you no matter what? Did they encourage you to look at this world through the lens of color? Did they encourage you to be prideful of your skin color and heritage? Did they teach you that getting a good education, wearing nice, respectful clothes, enunciating words properly, working hard, and being respectful and selfless to everyone is too white and abandoning your blackness? I can say with certainty that my parents, or any other white person's parents I knew all of my 50 years of my life, never taught their children anything remotely close to that about black people or pride in our whiteness. Billions of white children over the existence of humanity grew up poor in a home without a father, watching their mother struggle to make ends meet. The majority of them probably fit in the mold of statistics, which entails lack of success, criminal records, divorce, alcohol and drug abuse, etc. So I'm not sure what fantasy world black people get the perception that every white person has some sort of privilege that automatically bails the white person out of hardship or poverty or jail or whatever. It simply makes no sense. I've never been able to use my color as a means to take advantage of any kind of situation. I have never been treated special or superior because of the color of my skin. Furthermore, I have never been able to use the color of my skin as an excuse for the outcome of any situation. If any specific race has privilege in America today, without shadow of a doubt, black Americans hold the title to that claim, with advantages such as affirmative action and organizations aimed explicitly at funding black people specifically because of the color of their skin. More recently, black-on-black violence, crime in the streets on major cities such as looting and rioting, and deaths caused by BLM and gang violence are overlooked or glossed over by the media. A good example is a recent mass shooting that doesn't fit the narrative of the media outlets and the stereotypes they want to protect.
Newspaper in Texas, the Austin American-Statesman, said on Saturday that it will not publish the description that local law enforcement gave them of a man suspected of shooting 13 people. A guy shows up, shoots 13 people on Friday night, and the newspaper will not publish the description of that suspect because it could, quote, could be harmful in perpetrating stereotypes. Which now I think everyone has an image of what this person is, but you're not allowed to say it. Editor's note. Police have only released a vague description of the suspect shooter as of Saturday morning. The Austin American-Statesman is not including the description as it is too vague at this time to be useful in identifying the shooter, and such publication could be harmful in perpetuating stereotypes. If more detailed information is released, we'll update our reporting. So what does the suspect look like? Well, according to the Austin Police Department, he's a black male with dreadlocks wearing a black shirt and a skinny build. So he's a black guy, so they won't publish it. If he were a white guy, they would have published it.
What the left and quite a few black Americans seem to forget is that they live in the greatest country in the world, a country that has offered more opportunities and wealth to all classes and races of people than any country on earth. America has produced far more black millionaires through sports and music than any country at any time. This is an American privilege, a privilege that 90% of the citizens of this great country seem to take for granted. However, out of all the black millionaires that these industries of America had produced, over 70% of them end up bankrupt without anything to show for their success. Is this because of systemic racism, white supremacy, or just poor decisions with finance management? I am willing to bet that at least 60% of the black population had been taught or told at least one of the questions I asked about how you were raised earlier. I'm also willing to bet that a large portion of the black population has used their skin color as an excuse for the outcome of any situation. So whose fault is that? The white man's fault? Some will argue that I am missing the whole point. It's because of my white skin that I can naturally feel comfortable and unchallenged in life, that I have an automatic safety net and never have to worry about being oppressed or racially attacked because my skin color never had to endure that in history. So therefore, white people are just oblivious to their own privilege. I simply counter that argument with common sense. How would a black person in the past 60 years automatically feel that their skin color was a handicap or a factor at all in their daily lives unless they were taught to think that way? What white person had access to all of these young black people growing up to teach them such things? If you put a black 3-year-old toddler in a room full of 3-year-old white toddlers, do you believe that the black child equates that his difference of appearance to the white children makes him inferior, or that their skin color difference is a problem to the other children? Sure, kids are smart enough to see that their skin tones are different, but where do the children learn that their skin color is a problem or focus of concern? The answer is obvious. Parents teach their children to be racist and bigoted towards others based on their skin color. I won't deny that some rare experiences in life may be construed as racist encounters. Some may be outright and blatant without debate, but I'm willing to bet that most labeled racist experiences are misconstrued as such because the person claiming racism is seeing everything through the lens of color, and therefore anything can be construed as a racist act because it can't possibly have any other excuse besides their skin color. The idea that black people cannot possibly be racist because they were once oppressed is one of the most absurd comments anyone can make. Every single race in the history of mankind had been enslaved and oppressed at one point in time. Everyone in the United States in the present day lives as a slave to the system. If you pay income tax, you work for the government under slavery conditions and consequences. When they steal your hard-earned money with force, it's called tyranny and slavery. So no one in the United States has the right to complain about slavery. Even the Native Americans understand slavery and genocide of opposing tribes throughout history. Wars reward the victor with the booty. To conquer and divide has been the way of mankind since the beginning. The spoils of war include land and ownership and the establishment of new governments. Even today in Israel, the Palestinians don't seem to understand that. Battles were fought and the victor claims more territory and power. Period. It's not always the fairest outcome, or the victors aren't always the good guys either. But the reality is that we live in a world born into sin, and we all see through a sinful lens. Unfortunately, in the past couple of years, we have all seen too many articles and reports of how the left views our country and American culture as a whole. It's as if the left has employed hundreds of people to seek out anything and everything that they can find a way to see it through the lens of racism. Everything pushed by the left is deeply rooted in combating an imaginary white supremacy, and anything touched or influenced in any way by a white person must therefore be white supremacy and must be completely canceled. Whether it's historical, a cartoon, a food product, or an industry that I have worked in for the past 23 years. Tattooing. They will find some way to see everything through the lens of color. Another sinful lens is the lens of lust. And what should be honestly agreed with by all races and colors is a thing called attractive privilege. Even the animal kingdom understands this privilege well. It should go without saying that the more attractive and physically desirable you are, the more likely you will get special attention and benefits for. Beauty is a hot commodity and a big seller. People feel more comfortable and more interested in other people who are healthy, in shape, and attractive in the face. This is obvious in all social media profiles that feature incredibly attractive people. This is why most commercials and Hollywood productions only use attractive people to sell what they push. Regardless of what color they are, if they attract the attention of others in a unique way, they are far more likely to float through life fairly simply. Millions of gorgeous women have been pampered and spoiled without having to do a single thing except be an attractive trophy in some rich man's house. Class and wealth are an obvious trait of those who appear attractive. So the more money and effort you spend on your appearance, the more privilege you receive regardless of your race. This has been a privilege of all humans since the dawn of time. Men of all colors, races, tribes, creeds, and factions will be evil until the end. We cannot escape murder and terrorism. We can never put an end to racism or religious disputes. We will never be able to hide from death and the evil influence that makes us the insane human race that we are all part of. What we teach our children and the example that we set for them is vitally important to the future of any community, no matter what color they are. Teaching children Marxist ideologies and critical race theory will only oppress the minds worse, and exacerbating something you want to see disappear altogether is like throwing gas on a fire to extinguish it. Let's just watch this quick clip of what critical race theory sounds like in action.
White people are racist. So I put this up because I really want any white person in the room to know up front that this is what we're dealing with, that it's not going to be this coddling of white tears and what that looks like. We're not going to discuss, oh, maybe some of us have worked it out. No, you're always going to be racist, actually. So even when you're on your path to trying to figure out how to be a better human being, because I believe that white people are born into not being human, like that actually, instead of people of color and black folks being dehumanized, that actually everyone is dehumanized off rip within white supremacy, that y'all are born into a life to not be human, and that's what y'all are taught to do, to be demons. So in this particular way, white people are all racist.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Now let's hear what these concerned parents have to say about critical race theory.
You gonna deliberately teach kids this white kid right here got it better than you because he white? You gonna purposely tell a white kid, oh, the black people are all down and suppressed? How do I have 2 medical degrees if I'm sitting here oppressed? How did I get, first of all, time up, because I only got 5 minutes now, 5 minutes. No dad in the house, worked my way through college, sat there and hustled my butt off to get through college. You gonna tell me somebody that looked like all y'all white folks kept me from doing that? Are you serious? Not one white person ever came to me and say, well, son, you're never going to be able to get nowhere because you know the black people. But guess what? What's sickening about this whole thing is what y'all doing right now is already something I do in my community right now to speak out against stuff, because black folks are getting told by other black folks, oh, you know you ain't going to be able to do nothing out there in the world because them white folks ain't going to let you get no, oh, you know you're not going to be able to do it here because you know, the white man going to keep you down. Well, how did I get where I am right now if some white man kept me down? How am I now directing over folks that look just like you guys in this room right now? How? What kept me down? What oppressed me? I worked for myself from off the streets to where I am right now. You gonna sit here and tell me this lie of critical race theory? Of this the reason why black folks can't get ahead because of white folks? Are you kidding me?
The very thing that they were talking about, I was that kid in the ghetto. I was that kid in the hood. And I'm like, no, what y'all talking about, you guys weren't the problem. The issue that a lot of black people have right now is swallowing a hard red pill, and that's to realize that we absolutely are the biggest problem and the biggest threat to us progressing, not white people.
Well, we were just talking about this in the previous segment, which is, of course, the crime in the inner city. Now that we have a defund police movement, we have demonization of police are bad, you know, not diverse, whatever the concern is. And this is leading to the deaths of more minorities. But yes, the media doesn't want to talk about that. That's not a convenient narrative. And you'd rather talk about how everyone's so racist in the schools and turn the kids against each other.
Right. They got you looking at, they got you focused on something else while something else behind your back is going on. Everything that's happening right now, again, no, I don't care if anybody wants to agree with me or not. I live this stuff. The biggest threat to me when I was growing up was somebody that looked exactly like me. I never had no threat from any white police officer or any white person whatsoever. And to get myself through school like I did, there was no system there that they claimed that was there. I'm sorry, I'm just calling like it is now. Back in the day, slave days and, you know, civil rights movement, I get that. But in today's world, absolutely not. All they're doing is keep on handing folks walkers.
It is sad that we are even contemplating something like critical race theory, where children will be separated by their skin color and deemed permanently oppressors or oppressed in 2021. That is not teaching the truth, unless you believe that whites are better than blacks. Telling my child or any child that they are in a permanent oppressed status in America because they are black is racist.
Keisha, it's the proponents of critical race theory that don't understand it, think it's these Trojan horse words of empathy and tolerance. You understand that at its depth, it's about oppressor and oppressed. It's not even about race in the end. It's this Marxist ideology. Really quickly, last question for you, Keisha. You've gone through an interesting transformation. I was reading about your ideology change. You used to vote Democrat, now you vote Republican. What changed for you? How did you make that journey?
The most significant change that happened was I'm a person of faith, woman of faith in Christ, and God spoke to my heart and he said, your race, your skin color has become an idol in your life. And that totally changed my life because I stopped seeing myself through my skin color and I started seeing myself through my identity in Christ, which is who I truly am. And it helped me really see the world in a more correct way.
Imagine identifying according to your faith, your morals, your character, your actions, and not your shallow characteristics. It seems like an aspirational place, not just for a person, but for a country. Keisha, thank you so much for getting up with us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, take care.
My name is Jim Bean III. This is my lovely wife, Keisha. And we're here today to represent the millions of Black Americans who disagree with the Black Lives Matter movement. I always ask people, have you ever been to the Black Lives Matter website? Most people say no. Let me show you 3 things that I saw on there that goes against my Christian viewpoints. And as a taxpayer, I do not want to see this agenda, this indoctrination pushed on my 4 children. What I saw was, if you go to Black Lives Matter website, it says that they support sexual perversion, which they, in their own words, we foster a queer affirming network. This is America. You can be who you want to be. You can love who you want to love. But that indoctrination, that teaching should not be forced on everyone. It also says that we disrupt the nuclear family. That's my wife. This is our 4 children. Why would you disrupt the nuclear family? In most Black communities, the father is not there. That's why we're seeing so many issues and so many problems. Why disrupt that? Another thing you will see is that they say we engage comrades. They, in their own words, their leader said they are trained Marxists. Trained Marxists. I'm an American. I believe in American exceptionalism. I believe America is the best country ever. Another thing I want to point out, bring this over here. In our neighborhood, everyone can put up their signs and it says, we believe in this house. I want to give you what we're going to put in our neighborhood. We believe God created man and woman. Love is sacrificial. God created science. Not a few or some, but all lives matter. An unborn life is still a life. Helping the immigrant. Judging character, not skin color. Respecting the law and the flag. We're also going to put this one up. In this house, we believe biology is real. All lives matter. Crime is illegal. Jesus is life. God is love. Unborn babies are humans, right? Truth is everything. Lastly, I want to say this indoctrination, 30 seconds, it can get to the point where what happened in Dallas back in 2016, I'm going to read what it says here as far as the report. It says the suspect, who was a sniper, he killed 5 officers. He said here he was upset about Black lives. He said that he was upset that recent police shootings was upset about white people. He wanted to kill white, especially white officers. This is poisonous. This is toxic. We cannot allow this to continue. I know it's going on in mainstream media. I know it's in the sports, but there's millions who disagree. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
I don't think anyone else could have said it better than these parents right here. Remember what she said about God putting it on her heart that she was using the color of her skin as an idol. Powerful stuff, and we will touch base on that a little later. In my 50 years of life, I can honestly say that I don't recall any white people that I knew or witnessed being blatantly racist. There may have been a time or two at a bar or concert or party where some drunk redneck starts yelling out the N-word, trying to start something. But can you really judge a drunk? Everyone acts like a complete idiot when they are sloshed. So, not sure if I can really count those episodes. However, I have witnessed and encountered firsthand racism from Black people on several occasions. I have seen Black people use their own skin color as an excuse for an unrelated issue they seem to have. I have seen quite a bit of actions and behavior by a majority of Black people in my lifetime that definitely makes it quite easy to assess why Black Americans have a negative stereotypical stigmatism attached to their culture. And even though what I have witnessed can be validated, overall, most of my personal one-on-one experiences with thousands of Black people over the past 50 years have been very pleasant and normal. And color never became an issue with me or them. Not too long ago, a Black American activist group posted a video titled, "What Are White People Good At?" in which several Black people, half of them looked to be mixed with white ancestry, all gave their opinions of what they think white people excel at accomplishing. Now, besides the fact that the question asked ends with a preposition, the answers were not only extremely racist, but not very accurate or completely projected. This video was very telling of the modern day leftist black mentality. One major thing that white people are good at, that they forgot to mention, is invention. That's right. None of you would have cars, cell phones, computers, electricity, air conditioning, heck, just about everything you use in modern life without white people. But the whole purpose of this video that the black activist posted was to just trash talk white people and show how extremely racist the black activists really are. If white people posted a video like this on any social platform these days, every one of those white people being asked the same question and giving their opinions would be doxxed and labeled an extreme white supremacist and more than likely hunted down for public lynching within hours of the post. It simply would not be tolerated. Yet for some reason, white people are being told that they have white privilege. The stigmatism that plagues the black American culture today in white people's eyes are obvious, honest traits that will no doubt be misconstrued as racist observations. If white people were asked what some of the traits we see in black people, it would probably include a list of things like high crime rates, they fight and kill each other all the time, in gang violence, they get in groups and act rowdy and insolent, they only care about their image like gold teeth, jewelry, fancy cars and houses. They seem to only aspire to be a rap star, sports celebrity, or drug dealer. In large, they don't seem to make good decisions in life. They don't think rationally. They disrespectfully wear sagging clothes, play their stereos too loud in their cars. They impregnate their women and then take no responsibility, etc. Again, this list could read similar for those of us honest enough to take our collective observations and relay our perception of the average black American. Of course, I don't believe that all black people are included in those descriptions. But only a dishonest fool would deny such apparent traits are very prevalent in the black culture today. It's not too difficult to surmise some of these stereotypical traits when you see black Americans being asked some fairly simple questions pertaining to history or geography, economics, politics, or even basic social topics when randomly interviewed on news programs, a podcast, a YouTuber on the streets, or even the game show Family Feud.
What year was the War of 1812?
Girl, we don't know this answer as what?
How many world wars have there been?
3.
3? Who did we fight in the third one?
World War 4. You know what there is 4? World War 4. It's World War 4.
In what year did 9/11 happen?
Wow. I know that one. 2009.
I don't know. Do you remember what happened in World War II? No. Talking about the second one, who did we beat?
Vietnam. Let me see. Was it Vietnam?
It was not.
Okay, I don't know.
Who did we beat in World War II?
Damn.
Wow, you didn't.
My G, this is history.
Is it
stuff.
Vietnam?
Bitch, I got
Vietnam?
a history, yo. No, we lost in Vietnam.
So who did we beat?
The Jewish?
Germany.
Okay.
Who did we beat in World War II?
Come on, man. Go ahead, Samuel. It's tag teaming.
Yeah, you gotta help her.
Drink and I can't think.
Look, I'm trying, but
Maybe take the killer shots.
I want to say the one.
What is the largest state in the U.S.?
Texas. California.
California. Oh.
What?
Is it Florida? Oh, then I have no clue.
Wait. The largest state? It's not Texas?
What is the largest U.S. state?
Is Russia a state?
Huh?
Is Russia a state?
She said the largest state. I think Texas or New Mexico. New Mexico or Texas. It's around there.
See, Texas is pretty big.
Pretty big, but there's one that's bigger.
Okay, what would you say? I don't know.
What is the largest U.S. state?
I want to say, is it Cali? No. Texas.
Like, is this a trick question? Because I know Alaska's pretty big. Yeah?
1 month with 28 days, I think, or two months, I think.
2 months. What are those 2 months?
April and.
You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
How many stars is on the American flag?
Shit, we got 13 colonies, so 13 minus 50. 13 minus 50, goddamn, 47. 47.
Y'all look in the camera and let me know how many feet in the inch.
12.
Wait. How many feet?
One. It's 12.
0.
Get your composure. Get your composure. All right, here we go. How many feet are in an inch?
Wait, 60.
Okay, cool. God damn. Okay, they can spell receive for me as you about to receive this money.
RECIEVE.
R-E-Z-E after V, except after and receive. Yeah, that's right.
REC.
I before E.
RECIEVE.
No, I can't. I always have it auto-corrected in my phone.
RECIEVE.
Anthony, give me a boy's name that starts with the letter H.
Jose.
Jose with an H. Name something that follows the word pork.
You pine.
Huh?
You pine. Pork
That's right, Ted. Yes, Lunar Ted.
Pork. He said cupine. Cupine. What? What is cupine? This is the greatest answer I've ever heard. I feel you. It's number one.
Oh, my mama.
Pow. It's number one. Oh, really? Well, I'll tell you what. It's going to be number one on YouTube, but it ain't going to be number one on there. I can bet every dollar I got. You the only person that said cupine. Cupine! Name a country a man with a mustache should visit to meet a woman with a mustache.
France.
France.
Paris.
You my man, Daryl. Don't even worry about this, dog. You know good and hell well that ain't.
I know it's not.
All right, cool, okay. I appreciate you though, man. Let's go on back to your spot.
Yes.
Yeah. You want to see?
Yeah, I want to see.
All right, we'll go Paris. Rail, name something that's hard to do with your eyes open.
Read.
Name something that's hard to do with your eyes open. This boy in college. He enrolled in that now. He leaned into the mic and said, read, Steve. Toya, 100 men, tell me a traffic sign that best describes your love life.
Do not pass go.
Ooh, no it ain't. Do not pass go.
It's up there!
Hey, unless you driving that little car on the Monopoly board. That ain't no damn traffic sign. Them is instructions. Do not pass go. Name something that a person with long legs might not be able to fit into.
I'm going to go with long pants.
Good answer.
With me. Name something that a person with long legs might not be able to fit into. And then you said long pants.
Sorry, Steve.
No, it's okay. I don't want you to say I'm sorry. You know, I want you to, you know, you want to take that back, don't you?
Yes, I do.
I know, but we got to check and see if it's up there now.
Now, the idea here isn't to beat up on the intellect of the average black person, but to merely demonstrate how easy it is for one to conclude obvious traits through statistical data of observational experience. Observational experience with statistics isn't difficult for anyone to accumulate. An example would be, let's say an Asian man owns a convenience store for the past 5 years, and in that past 5 years, he has had to either confront, call the police on, or catch red-handed more black people trying to shoplift from his store than any other race of people. Anyone with a brain would start thinking in that situation that maybe they should keep a close eye on the black people that walk into his store. Perhaps he should follow them around and make sure they know that he is watching them closely. Now, is that fair to every black person that walks into his store? Of course not. But this store owner is at his wit's end and doesn't know what else to do to ensure that his statistical observational experience doesn't make his business flop. From the perspective of innocent, upstanding black people who walk into his store, this appears very offensive, awkward, and even racist. Is the Asian man racist? More than likely not. But if his experience has shown him, time and time again, that most of his issues or losses occur from the result of something that a certain race seems to be consistently doing, then the poor man cannot help or ignore his conclusions, can he? So who's really to blame for the stigmatism that this man has come to see through experience? Some call it reverse racism on an extreme rise. The most radical left black activists literally want to see white people of today suffer as they believe their enslaved ancestors suffered in America so long ago. Unfortunately, it seems apparent that out of the 13% of the black population that reside in America, the majority of them have a prideful doctrine to uphold directly and solely focused on their blackness. To a majority of black people whom are taught this doctrine in their homes and on the streets, it is vital that all black people adhere to what makes them separate and unique from white people. Keeping it real is the term the black culture used to identify this way of thinking. Jokingly, comedian Dave Chappelle referred to this concept in a comedy skit of his called When Keeping It Real Goes Wrong.
You're watching When Keeping It Real Goes Wrong. Vernon Franklin was an exceptional young man. He was the valedictorian of his high school class, won several scholarships, and became the first person in his family to attend college. He got a good job and worked 14-hour days, 6 days a week, quickly becoming the youngest vice president in the history of the Viacorp Corporation, ending the cycle of violence and drug addiction that had plagued his family for generations. The officers of his company were wrapping up the usual Thursday meeting in the South Conference Room when Frank Murphy, the man who had mentored Vernon, made an awkward comment.
Vernon, great job, buddy. You the man. Give me some skin, huh?
Vernon got along with all of the people he worked with, which in his heart of hearts made him feel like an Uncle Tom. Though he could have ignored the simple comment his mentor made, Vernon decided to keep it real.
Get your motherfucking hand out of my face. You heard me, mother? Get your hands out of my face. Stink this is, man. Just shake my hand like a man. I gotta give you some 5 on the backhand side with all this crazy jab. That's bullshit. You want a little soft shoe? Should I juggle some watermelon for you, bro? All that, nigga.
Hey, Vernon, buddy.
Get your mother hands off me, front. Play the game.
This isn't the Vernon I know.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Ho. You ever heard that before, Ho? Rap is dangerous. I used to beat motherfuckers up just like you, just for walking around my way, nigga.
Vernon, buddy.
You better sit the down, Frank. I said, sit down, bitch. Thug life. Think it's a game, nigga? Wu-Tang.
Today, Vernon works at Sonny's Filler Up on Route 80 in New Jersey. He makes $6.45 an hour and stinks of gasoline even when he's not at the station. It's as real as it can be.
$1? What am I gonna get with $1, nigga? I got kids. And that's real.
Vernon Franklin, once a heartwarming story of perseverance.
Wu-Tang!
Today, a sparkling example of when keeping it real goes wrong.
Even in a recent display that the National Museum of African American History and Culture had to apologize for in their comparison to white cultural values in a chart that labeled white traits as hard work and rational thought. This is literally implying that these are not traits of the black culture. This is admitting that the black culture is incapable or shows no interest in working hard to be successful or using their brains to think logically and make rational decisions. It appears that this chart produced by the National Museum of African American History and Culture is blatantly racist towards black people. Most human beings will only accept the narrative that they want to believe, regardless if the facts completely obliterate their worldview or beliefs. They simply refuse to accept truth to guard their own narrow dogma. Regardless of race, people are prone to do this frequently, and of course the secular world has been pointing at Christians for years as an example of this. Facts are difficult to accept for the left, especially because the left believes that the biased media and Hollywood talking heads are truthful and factual. And when a person who hasn't actually done hardcore research and actually knows all of the facts about the argument before them, they rely on sound bites and memes to define what is true in their narrative. Watch a clip from this interview with a young white girl who knows her facts speaking with a young black girl who only regurgitates the narrative she chooses to believe and justifies her opinions based on false narratives as well. Watch what she does when she realizes she cannot argue with facts.
Do you agree with any of those things?
I could see the first one, yeah, be less oppressive, because some people definitely are.
How, as white people?
Yes.
How am I oppressive?
Maybe not you specifically, but okay. Maybe not you specifically, but I just feel like some white people in general, they are definitely still oppressive, yes.
How do they do that?
For instance, the Black Lives Matter movement recently, that is definitely a big thing. So...
Well, they're the ones that are burning and looting. White people, you know, there wasn't White Lives Matter doing the burning, the murdering, and the looting.
No, that's where you lose me. That's where you lose me.
Yeah. You didn't know that?
No, I did know that, but...
You did know about the burning, the looting, and the murdering.
But the same exact thing happened at the Capitol, which was an even worse offense.
Where was the burning and the looting going on and the murdering?
All down the... Yes.
Can you pull that? I showed you evidence for what I'm talking about. Can you show the burning and the looting and the murdering at the Capitol?
I'm pretty sure breaking into the Capitol in general is a lot worse than just burning a building down.
So breaking some windows of a federal government building is worse than lighting someone's business on fire?
Yes, significantly.
Can you break that down for me?
Yes, okay, if you're burning down a business, yes, I understand there was no need for it, but it's a Capitol building. There is federal papers, things that basic people should not know about, and they just let them walk in. Where were the troops and the National Guard when people were breaking into the federal building? But
Nancy Pelosi told them not to come.
Then why did they have to go for the Black Lives Matter movement?
Well, okay, so there's
prior to the things getting burned down, there was no need for them to be at the Black Lives Matter movement.
Why not? They were burning businesses down, and they were killing people.
Before they started burning things down, and before people started getting killed, the National Guard was there, and they were just shutting people down. For what? There was peaceful protests, and they were instantly there.
You just admitted that before people started being murdered, businesses started being burned down and they were looting things, there was no National Guard. That's why the National Guard
was there.
Well, maybe there have been other Black Lives Matter riots where it's turned that way. Ferguson, for example, there's a precedent set. That's why they were there.
Yep. Okay.
The first day that this started, the first riot that this happened, they burnt down a police precinct.
I'm sure it was for good reason. No offense to you, wouldn't know.
So you know that there's documents in there that people don't need to get access to, just like you said for the January 6th.
But they didn't,
so why was that okay? Why was that a good reason, but January 6th wasn't? That's still a government building.
Because they knew that if they burned down that building, they all would have gotten arrested. Versus if you burn down a police precinct, yeah, a couple of people are going to get arrested, but that's about it.
Okay, well, the Capitol wasn't burnt down.
It could have been. It could have been.
Okay, but it wasn't. But we know that actual apartment buildings and businesses that people were relying on to survive and make a living are gone forever.
I think they made it work, and they definitely got some insurance money and can start from the bottom up, and people are definitely still supporting them.
Well, the Capitol, we have taxpayer dollars that pay for that. What's the difference?
A big difference. People start from the bottom with their businesses, and yes, other people in their community will help them. The Capitol is run by everybody. People are all around the world are putting their money into that, so why?
It's already fixed. The windows are already fixed.
And so where's the government
Are
to
you
help
going
the
to
basic
help?
people?
Are you going to help all of the people who had their businesses destroyed and
If
burned
I could,
down?
I would, yes.
There are multiple GoFundMes. Have you contributed to those?
I have, actually, yes.
How much?
That is actually none of your business.
You didn't do it.
But I did. My money is my money, and what I do with it is not your problem.
I don't think you. I think you're lying. You just said that they had insurance. How can you look at someone in the face and say your business being burned down and your livelihood being destroyed? You lost your business. You're making no income. Insurance takes years to go through sometimes. Regardless, it's not right.
Exactly. None of it's right, but that doesn't mean that just because black people are doing it, it should be 100 times more violent.
No one mentioned. Why is it 100 times more violent when black
I don't know. You tell me. You tell me. I could not tell you. I could not tell you.
Well, I guess we'll never know.
Years of oppression that just will never go away.
So that means black people burn down AutoZone?
I didn't say that.
Years of oppression? What does years of oppression have to do with burning down some innocent person's business?
The fact that innocent people are getting murdered.
Who?
George Floyd, for example, Trayvon Martin, innocent people getting murdered.
Innocent people getting murdered. How do you know George Floyd was murdered?
There's a video! Did I miss something?
I think you did. Did you miss the autopsy report?
Okay, so a little bit of weed is gonna kill you?
It wasn't weed.
So what was it?
He had so much fentanyl in his system laced with stuff. Yes, he did.
No. Okay, I'm done with this conversation. Thank you for your time.
I would be done too. You're so embarrassing. Oh my God, then flip me off. All right.
Unfortunately, this young black girl believes that she and the rest of the black people in America are severely oppressed and deserve the right to destroy, loot, and kill. Her double standards are completely incoherent to her, and she has no facts to back up any of her claims or beliefs. Just stubborn, ignorant pride in her focus on race and rhetoric. When she is confronted with facts, what does she do? She runs away, just like all of the other people who influenced this girl to think the way she does. This is a very sad but true example of someone who has been brainwashed by cultural Marxism. One who searches on Google for the term cultural Marxism will first get the Wikipedia link to the subject, which also includes the words far-right conspiracy theory that is also anti-Semitic. Wikipedia believes that a group of right-winged lunatics believes that certain organizations owned by Jewish people are using racial division and other Marxist ideologies to destroy the conservative Christian values of America. First of all, just because a Jewish person may be involved with something nefarious, that doesn't make the person who questions the intentions of a Jewish person anti-Semitic. This is a crafty way of attaching hate to the conspiracy. But regardless of the plot or who's involved, there is no conspiracy theory. There is literally a strong and as blatant as the sun agenda of the left to destroy conservative Christian values in America. A glaringly obvious fact doesn't require a conspiracy theory. It has been in effect for quite some time and now becoming more alarmingly palpable. Cultural Marxism is not a conspiracy theory. It is already happening in broad daylight, and it's evil. A large portion of the black culture has demonized some of their own people for simply wanting to educate themselves more, wear nice clothing that fits properly, enunciate the English language correctly, work hard on a steady full-time job, and excel to leave their low-income neighborhoods without getting pregnant before the age of 18. These are all traits of the white man, according to a large portion of the black communities. These principles and disciplines in life are abandoning your blackness. If you strive to obtain these goals in life to a majority of the black communities, you are a race traitor, a sellout, a house Negro, a coon, or an Uncle Tom. A lot of black people become racist of their own people when they want to become successful the old-fashioned way. I highly suggest you seek out and watch the documentary titled Uncle Tom, which brilliantly explains this fallacy of the black communities. The truth of the matter is that a large portion of the black communities in America today are far more openly racist than the 60% of white people that live in America. It's not hard to see and gather your own observational statistics when you hear black leftist activists giving interviews or speeches at rallies that the white man is always to blame for all their problems. The likes of BLM never want to take responsibility for their own actions or consequences. They only persist to point the finger and lay the blame all on the white man. Every white man, no matter what your circumstances are in life, being completely removed and irrelevant to any racial issue, you are still the one to blame for the black people's plight in life. Of the 60% of white people in America today, I have never seen in person a Ku Klux Klan rally or white supremacist march or protest. I know they occur and exist in certain rural areas in the 60% of the white people in the U.S., but are they really a threat? Do they actually still have modern day lynchings or cross burnings? If so, I don't ever see that as a big story on the mainstream media. As I said, the percentage of white racists is so extremely low that you'd really have to dig and look hard for true racism in the 60% of white people. People in general, regardless of skin color, can be extremely large a-holes that act on their emotions hastily without thinking things through and discerning the gain of their battles. Of course, on occasion, you are going to run into 1, maybe 2, maybe 10 complete a-holes in your life that will make a racial slur or takes a racial stab at you. Does that mean that he truly believes that his skin color makes him superior to you? More than likely not. He's just a complete a-hole who doesn't think about what he says before he says it. Sure, you may argue that from your heart comes the evil or good treasures, but we also must not rely on our hearts for discernment. Even if a pathetic a-hole truly is racist and wants to display his evil tardness by calling you a name or taking any kind of racial stab, does it make you the better person to retaliate with the same poison? Where does your pride ultimately get you? Want to know who could answer that question better than anyone? Satan. Which leads me to my final point before I give you my 7 key suggestions of how to end racism completely. An antichrist society is a society destined for division and failure. When Christ is present in your household, and the importance of truth that our King Yeshua HaMashiach has taught us is upon the hearts and minds of all of your family members, then the family unit stays firmly bonded with positive morals and values that will carry through to success and peace in your life on earth. Because the ruler of the secular world has inundated the minds of our youth for generations with influences in all forms of media, nowadays Satan has come out of hiding in the shadows to full expectation of self-glorification. Satan is desperate and working overtime to destroy families, infect the children with sexual exploitation or literal sacrifice at abortion clinics, and filling the minds of teens to 20-somethings to accept socialist Marxism as a welcoming utopia for their future. It's no wonder we see so much violence, division, delusion, pride, anger, and rebellion in all of the young cultures today. It's no wonder that most of the sheeple in the world are oblivious to the core issues that we all struggle with every day. Satan has blinded the majority in this world, just as Jesus himself prophesied that he would. More people concerned with their flesh and fleshly desires than their spirit and serving others as we are meant to. In this particular subject, we can relate to this truth and that key word, flesh. Think about it. The flesh is literally responsible for the whole idea of racism. And yet the ignorant sheeple of the world persist to ignore this simple teaching of Christ and still see through the lens of color and make their flesh their idol. It's easy for anyone to point the finger and blame someone or thing for their own problems or shortcomings. It's easy to make excuses like so many do today to divert responsibility away from the actual culprit. One of the most common excuses we hear today from the leftist ideology is that the criminal element of the black communities are inevitably born into or forced into crime due to poverty and oppression. This claim is absurd in so many different ways. First, we know that there are plenty of cultures and communities around the world living in poverty with a tiny fraction of the crime rate associated with the black communities in America. Second, no outside force is controlling the black youth of America to rebel, loot, steal, cheat, rob, rape, pimp, deal drugs, murder, etc. It's not white music or white people in general influencing any black community's children to stay in poverty and turn to crime to survive. The rebellion is against God, against their own families, and against reason. The only entity influencing this rebellion and division is Satan. Remember that Christianity ended slavery in the world. Christianity and the Holy Bible is not, I repeat, not defined or translated by any specific race as being favored for any race either. Even the chosen people of God, known today as the Jews, do not have any more special value or love than any other race. They are not favored over any other race by God, just simply the genetic lineage that God chose at the time he saw righteous or untainted enough to carry on the bloodline of Christ. That's what makes them chosen. On occasion, you may hear an extremist radical claiming that there is a white Christianity and a black Christianity, that white people use their own version or interpretation of Christianity to oppress black people and remain racist hypocrites. They may also espouse that the King James Bible was created by racist white men and that Jesus was indeed truly black African of descent. These kind of completely baseless, ill-informed claims still circulate today by groups like the Black Hebrew Israelites. Again, perhaps 60 to 100 years ago, there were small groups of radical, ignorant, racist white people that justified their racist views by using the Bible. But that minority of narrow-thinking hypocrites don't last long or gain any kind of popularity to acquire any kind of merit in the Christian church. The point is, you'd be very hard-pressed to find a white pastor in America today that preaches anything close to racism towards anyone. However, just last year, a specific black reverend of an evangelical Lutheran church by the name of Lenny Duncan gained quite a bit of focus for his racist rhetoric in his church. Not only did he preach to the sermon of just how oppressive the white Christianity supremacy is in America today, but he wrote a book to further push his racist antichrist teachings in the guise of a black Christian leader. Lenny is the kind of naive pastor who wears a Black Lives Matter logo on his tippet and advocates the Marxist ideologies of the far left, but still tries to relate them to his Christian construal. Another false prophet who will one day say, "But Lord, Lord, did I not preach in your name?" False prophets and wolves in sheep's clothing come in all colors and shapes and sizes. No one is safe from their clever usage of linguistics and empathy to pull at your heartstrings and make you sway to their way of thinking. The devil loves to use universal relevant words and catchphrases to sucker you into playing his game. They look innocent and full of goodwill from a fresh perspective. They seem to really know what they are talking about, and every word seems to hit home in such a relevant way that it's hard to resist the desire to join their propaganda machine. There are a lot of so-called leaders whom will lead you straight to hell without you even realizing it. There are politicians, primarily on the left Democratic side, that seem to attract the votes of the very same people that they are intentionally trying to keep oppressed, with policies put into action underhandedly with an exterior impression of good intent. Now, I was never really into politics and who was who on the House floor of Congress until so many crazy accusations and bizarre behavior caught my attention during the Trump administration. After 4 years of watching several Senate floor meetings and congressional hearings, it was clear that the Democrats were not only all line projectionists, whose double standards and excuses sounded like a 6-year-old in school trying to cover their behinds from an obvious infraction, but all of whom looked like a group of evil, ugly, and completely ignorant, out-of-touch thieves. The black Congress members of the Democratic Party in particular seem to be incredibly racist, and more times than I can count have spoken with their mouths some of the dumbest things I've heard any human being say before. These people in Congress are supposed to be our leaders who represent us as we, the people.
Yeah, my fear is that the whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
We don't anticipate that. The Guam population, I think, currently about 175,000, and again, with 8,000 Marines and their families, it's an addition of about 25,000 more into the population.
And
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I think I've mixed up my speeches. We've got to ensure access to helium for all. What do you do when the wolf is crying out, or actually barking out? There being no helium for comedians to get that high-pitched voice. Do you move back from the door and then kneel down and pray and hope that everything is okay? What happens when you put in a cage fight a giant in with a midget? The use of the midget, the use of the M word is no longer socially acceptable. Well, the midget will not win the fight, I'm going to tell you that. Now, the M word refers to a group of people, the little people. If you put 30 midgets in with that giant, then the midgets have a chance. It really refers to a medical condition. Now, they have weight classes in cage fighting. Dwarfism is the name of that medical condition. You'll just have equal weights. You'll have equally weighted combatants. When you put a quarter in the pocket of a rich man, then there's a hole in that pocket and it trickles down. The quarter falls out into nickels and dimes. And you're downstairs in the bathroom and something's leaking from the upstairs bathroom, and then someone tells you that it's raining. It just doesn't make sense.
But as I have said before, it is the last time that I will support two white males for president and vice president.
I am not running for anything except the impeachment of Trump.
What happens if we do not get what you just told? What should the people do? What should protesters on the street do?
I didn't hear you.
What happens?
What should protesters do?
Well, we got to stay on the street, and we've got to get more active. We've got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure that they know that we mean business.
We ask it in the name of the monotheistic God, Brahma, and God known by many names, by many different faiths. A man and a woman.
Instead of acting and sounding like leaders, these politicians have all shown themselves to be nothing but puppets with their own interests of power and lining their pockets with your tax dollars. Voting almost seems irrelevant or impractical these days, especially with the questionable results of this last election. The point is, we cannot rely on politicians to fix our problems. We can't look at the color of a politician and think that relates to us in any way. These people in D.C. are all in it for themselves. And though we truly need a just governance in America, unfortunately, we the people have allowed this government to get way too big for its own britches. We have given them far too much power, and now even the small, less than 5% activist, loudmouth, crybaby, snowflake, fairy people have influenced our political leaders to bend to ridiculous requests and mandates. This government has surpassed tyranny and is now full-blown headed towards socialism. But I have a solution or two that can definitely turn the tables and give you the advantage in this crazy world and crazy times. Oh, and just in case you think there is no such thing as God and use that as your excuse to condone racist ideologies, let this young lady prove God's existence in less than a minute for you, so you have no excuse.
Have y'all ever heard of the theory of general relativity? It's what Einstein is famous for. In his calculations, he started to realize that the universe was not eternal. It had a beginning. Now this leads us to the law of causality. Everything that came to be needs a cause. So Einstein clearly knew that if the universe had a beginning, it needed a cause. Let's go to the Big Bang Theory. There was no space, no time, and no matter before the Big Bang. The universe emerged out of nothingness. What does that mean? Since it's impossible for the universe to be able to create itself because it didn't exist in order to be able to create itself, nature and the universe itself was just a big effect that was caused by, what are we left with? An extremely powerful, extremely intelligent, precise, given the precision that our universe was created with, personal entity that is capable of existing outside of time, space, and matter. That can't be nothing but God.
The 7 key solutions. Number 1. Restore and solidify Christian biblical teachings in the home.
Most people that claim that their family is rooted in Christian beliefs or have a Christian upbringing seem to have either forgotten what that means or it's just lip service and only meant to please the older generation in their family. The family tree bears the fruit of its nature. Is your family producing rotten fruit or good fruit? Over 70% of the black population in America are born out of wedlock, which is the result of welfare incentives. Abortion is the leading cause of death for African Americans, more than all other causes combined, including AIDS, violent crimes, accidents, cancer, and heart disease. More than 16 million black babies have died by abortion since 1973. Approximately 360,000 preborn black babies are aborted every year. That's nearly 1,000 per day. Abortion is an evil, liberal, racist creation by Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, who initiated the quote-unquote Negro Project in 1939, which was intended to stop the growth of the black community. Don't you think it's time we stop killing these babies and the potential they could offer all of us? Always stand against abortion rights. It's murder no matter what excuse you try to make for it. The family unit with both mother and father present in the home are an essential advantage to a successful, more meaningful future and far less likely to produce the rotten fruit that plagues so many families. The Christian conservative values are the primary avenue to a happy, healthy family. Engulf your family with the Holy Spirit by praying with them and for them frequently. Stay in the Word by reading the Holy Bible regularly. Join a local non-denominational church to be surrounded by like-minded people and praise and worship the Lord through song. Encourage your children to listen to Christian radio and watch Christian content on streaming networks. Show your family that God is always the center and always comes first in your family. Instill these morals in your entire family, and I guarantee your family will succeed in many ways that only Jesus can clear the path for.
Number 2. Stop teaching your children that your skin color or race is an advantage or disadvantage.
Many generations of all races are guilty of this heinous hereditarian heresy. We all need to stop teaching our children that color of skin factors into anything of importance. We need to stop advocating other outside influences such as critical race theory to exacerbate a problem that should not exist to begin with. We need to stop allowing our children to accept the lies and propaganda being fed to them by the media, activists, and teachers with a leftist agenda toward a failing ideology known as cultural Marxism. Teach our children to avoid looking through the lens of color or claiming victimhood in the name of their flesh. Take a stand against organizations or policies created to target children to believe in division, segregation, and hate based on race or skin color.
Number 3. Teach yourself to stop looking at life through the lens of color.
If you consistently live your life worried or concerned or just plain basing your worldview on the color of your skin, specifically in a negative or victimized viewpoint, then you are only oppressing yourself and keeping yourself locked in a mental bondage. Take responsibility for your actions based on your abilities and shortcomings, based on character and behavior, not on a scapegoat straw man philosophy like, oh, it must be the color of my skin that this all happened to me. Do not allow your skin color to become an idol in your life. By doing this, you filter everything first through the lens of color, and it becomes your master, and you its slave. You enslave yourself by making your race or skin color an idol.
Number 4. Stop listening to white liberals and demoncrats.
These people claim to be woke, but are clearly the joke. They pander and placate in a sneaky way by remaining the most racist group of people in the world, but appearing as though they care with catchphrases and empathetic words to pull on the heartstrings of anyone who wishes to claim victimhood under the guise of their push to cultural Marxism. These are the people who have the power and influence in the corporate media, social networks, and Hollywood music entertainment. They push rhetoric that contain fractions of truth distorted to fit their agenda of dividing and destroying the conservative values of America. They are Antichrist sheeple, demonically possessed and consumed with hatred towards anyone who opposes their outwardly sinful and lustful lifestyles. They are the fuel and catalyst for all left-wing factions of activists. From feminists to the LGBTQ to the BLM and Antifa. They are all the same mentally deranged, lost souls whom choose to rebel against God and the rest of society in the name of being progressive or pioneering.
Number 5. Listen to positive and productive role models.
There are hundreds, if not thousands, of people far more deserving of our attention and admiration than what we have all been programmed to think are role models. Celebrities in sports and entertainment are the last people we should aspire to emulate or praise as someone who offers any kind of true benefit to mankind. The very same people that seem to be vilified or ignored nowadays, like police officers or brain surgeons or pastors or philosophers, are the very same people that we should aspire to rival and look up to. The conservative Christian American has a more successful, peaceful, loving, and happier disposition in life with a statistical track record to back that claim up. So naturally, you should look towards the influence of conservative thinkers as role models for your own life. It goes without saying, but I just love to say it, Jesus Christ is the best role model. But if you are interested specifically in black role models here on earth, I can name a few you can find on YouTube or may have heard of on TV before. Thomas Sowell, Larry Elder, Ben Carson, Candace Owens, Brandon Tatum, Damani Bryant Felder, Jericho Green, Anthony Brian Logan, Kevin Corner, Topher, the Hodge Twins, Diamond and Silk, and Jesse Lee Peterson, just to name a few. These people are all 100% keeping it real and telling you the truth. If you truly want to be woke or awakened, start off with these great people. Listen closely to what they are saying and use your God-given logic to understand that it isn't about race, it's about knowledge that gives you the true privilege.
Number 6. Demand responsible leaders, entertainers, and organizations to stop exacerbating racial differences.
We all need to stand against the mainstream news outlets, the big tech social networks, and the pandering corporations in the entertainment and food and beverage outlets. We need to demand that they stop with the racial rhetoric and divisiveness altogether. If anything needs to be canceled in our American culture, it's racial rhetoric. It's the mentality of victimhood, not just based on the color of your skin, but your sexual preference, your gender identity, pretty much everything the left feels they need to pamper their own perverse lifestyles for. All of these kind of things are what should be canceled. Morgan Freeman once answered Mike Wallace to the question, "What do we do about racism?" He replied, "Stop talking about it." Mr. Freeman nailed it on the head. Stop talking about it. The hype and attention this subject gets, or the exaggeration of certain racial entities, are so far removed from reality that most honest people will agree that on average, they really don't see this kind of hate or encounter any racial problems on a daily basis. It's all being fabricated by these evil media-based organizations to make you live in fear, guilt, and disparity so that you are easy targets for the indoctrination into their one-world socialist system. Demand that the racial rhetoric ends with the media and corporate platforms with consequences and punishments.
Number 7. Celebrate your American privilege.
You live in the most prosperous, free, innovative, and diverse country in the history of the world if you live in the United States. This truly still remains to be the land of opportunity. Why do you think so many people from all over the earth are on a waiting list to come and live here legally? Why do you think they are bum rushing the southern border illegally? Because this truly is the best place to live anywhere in the world for your potential as a human being. Millions of men and women have died serving this country since its conception, and all so that we can have the freedom and opportunities to be the best that we can be. Don't let big government continue to grow. Don't let the left try to make you believe that this is a racist and evil country. Don't let other men and women tell you how you should feel about this country or how you should think based on your race. This is the melting pot of the world. We should strive for tolerance and equality without segregation of any kind. We should celebrate our past, regardless if we have ugly scars to show for our progress. We should look at ourselves only as Americans, with a shared history and a shared optimistic future in unity. There should be no Black History Month, no Black College Fund, no affirmative action, nothing that separates any one race from another. No one should ever be treated special, privileged, inferior, or superior, or even evil, solely based on their race or skin color. Patriotism isn't a skin color or racial identity. It's the pride we have in having the privilege and opportunity given to us by God to live in the greatest country in the world. Remember that. Well, that's all I have to suggest and discuss on this topic. I would love to be able to say I don't ever want to talk about this again or hear about it again, because it should not be an issue to begin with. Now, I'm sure there will be plenty of livid leftists who will pick this video apart and try to make it something it's not intended. However, if you are intelligent and can humble yourself to understand the facts and face the truth, no matter how much it hurts you and your pride, you will realize that everything I said in this video is true and undebatable. No race of people are perfect, but all cultures are unique and special in their own way. We feed off of each other's cultures and are inspired to emulate the beautiful aspects of each culture. I grew up heavily influenced by the Black culture, both the negative and positive aspects of the Black culture. The first live concert that I ever attended without parents at age 15 was the Eddie Murphy Pieces of My Mind tour, which later became known as Raw. My idols as a kid were Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, Michael Jackson, Prince, Jimi Hendrix, and Bob Marley, to name a few. TV icons and shows like Bill Cosby, What's Happening, Sanford & Son, The Jeffersons, Different Strokes, Prince of Bel-Air, Mr. T, and Good Times were always on my family's TV. Funk and rap were my preferences from their conception, with bands and artists like Parliament Funkadelic, the Sugar Hill Gang, Grandmaster Flash, Curtis Blow, Run DMC, Eric B. and Rakim, Public Enemy, LL Cool J, Tribe Called Quest, Fat Boys, Kool Moe Dee, KRS-One, just to name a few, has a huge impact on my life. I never saw black people as an inferior because of the color of their skin, and I never saw myself as a superior because of mine. I have always felt that just like every culture that God has graced on earth, the black culture was just as beautiful and intriguing and inspiring as any other. I thank Jesus every day for such a wonderful, diverse world of cultures, and He alone has put this on my heart to give you my perspective in the most honest and loving way I can. I hope you all enjoyed this video and are willing to share it with everyone you know. I am unashamed and stand firm in my words of truth for the benefit of all mankind. And in that spirit, I leave you with this final reminder.
With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning, my country, tears of thee. Sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring. From the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom ring. From the mighty mountains of New York, let freedom ring. From the heightening Alleghanies of Pennsylvania, let freedom ring. From the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado, let freedom ring. From the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring. And when this happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.